Well, international outrage is intensifying over the apparent murder of civilians in the Bucha, Ukraine.
Today, the Biden administration and European allies announced new sanctions against Russia.
UW-Madison professor of political science, Yoshiko Herrera, joins us once again. Thanks for being with us.
Great to see you, Yoshiko.
Likewise, thank you.
So where do we stand at this point, 6 weeks into this war?
Well, the war has not gone as Putin had hoped. He had hoped for a quick victory, and the Ukrainian army and Ukrainians as a whole have shown remarkable resilience and resolve in fighting back. And one of the significant developments is that the Russian side has pulled out of the north of Kiev, the capital city. And that's important because that suggests that there will not be another front coming with participation from Belarus. And it also suggests that Russia is no longer even going to try to stop the supply lines coming in from the west.
In light of alleged war crimes in Bucha, why are the U.S. and Europe not moving forward with establishing a no-fly zone or a protected humanitarian corridor in Ukraine?
Yeah, this is a very difficult dilemma. Everybody would like to save civilian lives and to stop the destruction of Ukraine as soon as possible. But unfortunately, the concern about a no-fly zone is that it would lead to an escalation and a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia. And because there's a possibility of nuclear war and nuclear exchange, NATO allies and the United States are being very cautious about that. However, on the other side, nobody likes to see these civilian atrocities, war crimes, and what some are even calling genocide taking place. And so there is more and more pressure to do more to support Ukraine militarily, but somehow avoiding a direct formal confrontation between Russia and Ukraine. To provide a humanitarian corridor or a no-fly zone would mean that NATO or Ukrainian allied forces would have to be willing to shoot down Russian planes or to fire at Russian targets in order to protect those civilians. And so it sounds like it's just protective and it's just humanitarian, but it actually means, if you're going to enforce it, that it means confrontation. And that's why it's potentially dangerous.
New sanctions against Russia were announced today, and it seems like, why are there still more sanctions to be imposed? Why aren't they just cut off?
Well, the biggest issue is that Russia supplies about a third of Europe's energy, and that is a major source of income for Russia. And so the big thing left in sanctions is cutting off energy exports from Russia. I think the Europeans are already moving on this. They already have banned coal. The U.S. has banned Russian oil. Those might look like small steps, but I think that there are discussions in place about next moving towards banning Russian oil. Gas is harder because it's in pipelines. It's harder to replace. Countries are more reliant on it. But there are proposals being floated for how to reduce purchases of gas and how to shift European energy to other sources, including from the U.S.
Will they be effective, though? Isn't it primarily civilians who suffer from these sanctions? Do you think this could actually bring the war to an end?
Well, I think there's going to have to be multiple factors that bring it to an end. Number one, I think the Ukrainian military efforts are at the forefront because it's primarily a military operation, and I don't think Putin is going to stop until he is stopped militarily. So I think the military support for Ukraine is number one. But the sanctions do weaken Russian state capacity because they're creating a lot of economic damage in Russia, which Putin is going to have to explain to people why they're not only war dead, but why the country is being isolated in many ways, and why there's inflation, why payments are not being made, et cetera. So I think the sanctions do weaken Russian state capacity and the ability to carry out the war.
Yoshiko, we are out of time for now, but I'm sure we'll check back in the near future. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Yoshiko.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Sure.
Great to see you.
We'll have a final check of your forecast coming up.